Welcome to the Dorm Next Door, episode 19. I'm so happy to have you all with me. If you've been following this week, I've been blessed by God to get a lot of traction. Actually, over the last few weeks, they've been really, really great. And so I'm just so thankful to everybody. If you're somebody that's watching this and I don't know you, I'm going to say I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that you're listening to this right now. It's such a blessing because you know what? It was something that I was used to. I was blessed by it. I would hope that people that I know would listen to this podcast, but the goal is always to get to a group of people, get to people in general that you do not know. You know, that's kind of the goal of a podcast, beyond some that are made just for friends, which are rare, but they exist. Most of the time with a podcast, you want people to listen to what you have to say. So if you are new, if you're joining me for the first time on episode 19, I'm so thankful to have you here. That being said, please stick around. These podcasts aren't too long, and I think that's one of the things that might give my podcast a little bit more appeal. I think that might make mine a viable candidate for your ears. So just stick around. This is going to be a good episode. I usually follow along with whatever is going on in the world at the time. And what we have going around right now is knowledge about what's going on in Iran. That is the forefront of our knowledge. I'm not going to get distracted talking about Barack Obama releasing classified information about aliens, because that's not what we should be focused on right now as an American people. If you are a Christian, you know that that is simply a distraction, right? When a president releases classified information and they gloss over the fact that he did that thing, if it was real heavy classified information, Barack Obama would be tried in court. This is something that presidents get in trouble with. It's illegal. It's against the law. Trump said that on the airplane. So this is not what we're going to talk about. Because if you haven't realized already, that's supposed to distract you from the Epstein files, Iran, a million things that are actually going on in this world. When you watch the news, you're going to hear different things than you would if you read an honest news article or an honest blog. They exist out there. If you can see past bias, you can really get to the heart of what is going on in this world. There are conflicts going on around the world at all times that you don't even know about. You might not know about what's going on in Myanmar as far as ethnic cleansing. You might not know about what's going on with Armenia. And that's the thing, is that whatever's broadcast on an evening's news is simply the most exciting thing that they have going on, or the thing that they think that you're just going to watch. Obviously, most news is negative, and even the stuff that we should be paying attention to is, of course, negative. But negative news in general is more likely to get listens, is more likely to get read, it's more likely to get watched, which is why they make sure to insert things like this. It's why they make a play constantly on whatever it is concerning your own political beliefs. They want to activate whatever you have, whatever opinion you have, to be angry at the other side or see a cheap victory, right? I don't think that wokeness is the biggest problem that is facing the United States of America. I would have thought that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but it's all a distraction. Now, it's a completely different conversation as to whether or not these people are inherently trying to distract us, or they're just doing the things to be, a company looking out for its own interests, trying to get as many people to watch or support what they create as possible, so they are going to make things that they think people will like or listen to. So I'm getting completely sidetracked here. Did not even mean to do that. But welcome if you're here for the first time. I'm going to start this off cold. I believe if Benjamin Netanyahu had his way, there would be youth all over this country with their boots on the ground in Iran right now fighting for him. And let me tell you, in Iraq in 2003, when we went to war, which Benjamin Netanyahu was lobbying for over 10 years prior to our invasion under Bush, there was not a single Israeli boot on the ground in Iraq to help us. And it was a war that was more for them than for us, right? We were meant to believe that they had weapons of mass destruction because nukes scare everybody. But the truth is that Israel's not going to support us in these wars. These are wars that they want us to fight because it's a lot easier when they can worry about other things when you have the United States to go to bat for you every single time. I'm not arguing that Iran is not aggressive towards Israel. They have automatically a divide. They automatically are going to hate each other because of their worldview, their religion. Like Muslims and Jews inherently do not get along because they believe that the other person is incredibly wrong. They believe that the other person is 100% wrong in the way that they see the world, in the way they live, and the most hot button topic, and that's the God that they worship. So I know for a fact that if he had his way, the war of Iran would have started in June, probably even prior to that. But now there's an election coming up. So more things are going to need to be taken into account than previous. He's also thinking about the fact that he is a slim majority. I made a video about this on Instagram and TikTok earlier this week, that war in Iran needs to be very strategic, very smart, very quick, and with the least amount of casualties as possible if they are going to remain with as little flack as possible. A war would be one of the most unpopular things that they can do. But you know what's super interesting is that the reason why the United States is becoming far more aggressive with Iran right now, and this is most likely going to be overlooked, right now, Iran is in the season of Ramadan. They are Shia Muslims. They are very, very strict to the doctrine of Islam. So you know what they're doing? They are fasting all day. From sun up till sundown, they are fasting all day, and they are abstaining from drinking water. It is 100% fast. They are praying 5 times a day at certain times. They do this in times of war and peace. So you know what? If we got into a war or a conflict with Iran, they would automatically, even though they would have the disadvantage because they're going up against the United States, they have that extra disadvantage. They're distracted. They're supposed to be with family. They're thinking about their family at this time more than any other time. This is their holidays. So it is extremely smart for Israeli interests and American interests to attack them right now. So the goal is to get them to come to the table with a nuclear deal, right? But we are supposed to believe that Iran hasn't had nuclear facilities since June, but apparently they've been rebuilding this. This is a very, very new development that we're able to see with satellite images that they have reconstructed. As far as we know, they've reconstructed these buildings. We don't know what's in them. They could be, but each of these countries, whether you are Israel or you are Iran, is looking out for their own interests. They're looking out for their own survival. That's what they think is at stake here. They think that the other wants to destroy them, and that is true. So it's trying to figure out how they can survive. Iran wants to have nukes because they know Israel has them, but Israel has never admitted to having nukes. Even since the 60s, when they most likely developed them, because they were able to evade United States weapons inspections. After JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson was able to be kind of manipulated and played around with so that they could figure out how their administration wouldn't be able to supervise the creation of nuclear weapons in Israel. They would move Johnson into different rooms. They would have him stay in there for a set amount of time, which is a short amount of time. They were able to move the inspectors wherever they wanted to go, and they were able to have everything that the inspectors were supposed to see was something that they were completely diverted from. And I'm pretty sure they even messed with temperature, but that's weird stuff. They did not. They made sure that the United States had no idea for sure whether or not they were building a nuke. Then eventually they got rid of regular weapons inspections in general. I think this was by the time of Ford and Carter. So they have them. You know how we know they have them? Because apparently from a source, the reason why they're able to get Trump to do so much for them concerning Iran is because Israel will say to Iran, oh no, we're going to use our nukes. They'll tell the United States, if you don't use your bunker busters and take out their nuclear facilities, then we're going to use nukes. It's called the Samson option, and it's real. And it's smart on behalf of the Israelis, because it is the easiest way to get people to come to the negotiating table, because everybody knows that the second a nuke is fired, the entire world could end, right? The only time that nukes have been used on people has been Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we were the only country that had them at the time. So now we are at a point where you have all these countries all over the world, Russia, China, United States, Britain, Israel, that all have nuclear weapons, and the list goes on, obviously, but these are the main heavy hitters. And we have signed that if an ally of NATO is attacked, which is why the Ukraine-Russia war was it was fragile, because if an ally gets attacked, if a member of NATO, such as I believe Poland, gets attacked, then everybody is required to respond. So you are in a different world tenfold than when the first nuclear weapon was dropped. So they are the ultimate negotiation tactic. So what's Israel by default going to do? It's called the Samson option. And they have Iran in the perfect position to come to the table with a nuclear deal, and Trump just gave Iran 10 to 15 days to come to the table with the nuclear deal. And I promise you, they're going to reach a deal in that period of time, or else all hell will break loose. It's just the way it is. We shouldn't be threatened by the country of Iran at all, because they can't eliminate the United States of America. I'm pretty sure no country in the world can do that right now. And that could scare some people, yes, but I think it's better to live in that country than not live in that country. I don't think anybody should really disagree with me on that point. But right now, the United States is dispatching the USS Gerald Ford from the Caribbean to the Middle East. And it's also going to join the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, and it's going to threaten Iran. So we are applying maximum pressure right now. We have aircraft, we have jets, and we have the aircraft carriers. The USS Gerald Ford, to my knowledge, is the best aircraft carrier that the United States of America has. So we are sending the best of the best to this region so that we can apply maximum pressure. Right now, at the same time, on opposite ends, right now Russia, China, and Iran are doing joint exercises in the Strait of Hormuz. And earlier this year, Iran closed it briefly for military exercises, which alarmed the United States of America because it is very aggressive. It is. That's something that you do, and it is aggressive because China gets a lot of oil. South Africa gets oil. Saudi Arabia gets oil. A lot of the Eastern world, Russia, I'm pretty sure, a lot of the Eastern world gets oil through the Strait of Hormuz, which is geographically controlled by Iran. Mostly. There's another country, but Iran has the most geographical dominance over the Strait of Hormuz. And if Iran closed the strait, that would probably be the worst decision that they can make. Them closing it would actually move China away as an ally. The U.S. already took Venezuela, which was 5% of China's oil supply. Yeah, that's still major. The Strait of Hormuz is 45% of the country of China's oil supply. So that would mean if Iran shut it, which they've been toying around with the idea of doing, they've been messing around with it, and they actually, obviously, as I said, they temporarily did it. That is a strategic failure. So 45% of China's oil supply being cut would mean that in just 2026 alone, they've lost half of their oil supply. And this is China we're talking about. This is second world GDP, second world population, second to the United States, like the silver medal in a lot of categories. And to have them angry with Iran would be the worst thing that they can do. But it's at the same time one of the things that Iran has. It's one of the main things that makes Iran dominant and powerful. Obviously, the way that the world moves requires that this thing is open. So they're in a tough spot right here. They're going to come to the table. They always do. This is something that should be expected. Right? Trump doesn't want to have to strike these countries. He doesn't want to. But whenever he reaches this point, we can always count on Iran coming to the table, if that makes sense. But on another front, Israel is currently getting ready for preemptive strikes on Iran-backed groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis. However, Hezbollah in Iraq is reluctant to confront Israel, but Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen are very likely to attack. So all these things are kind of happening at once. People sometimes forget that Iran is not just contained where Iran is geographically. Not all of its resources are in that country. They do have backed groups in other Middle East countries. They're like militias. And so while the United States of America would be taking care of Iran, well, Israel will be continuing to fight these groups. And I don't understand why on earth these groups, outside of being religious, right? Because Islam is the main thing that keeps them going, why they think they can just keep fighting. Like, black, white. This is a black and white issue. There's no gray area. These people should know that they are going to lose. They know that they are going to lose. It's literally like everybody will get wiped out, and they're just like, oh, well, yeah, we're still here. Like, no, you're not. It literally shocks my brain that these people like that exist. Because there comes a day where you sometimes just have to be like, you have to get real with yourself. You got to be honest with yourself. It takes some self-reflection. You got to pause for a moment and be like, well, yeah, I probably shouldn't continue to do these things. And that's the thing, is Israel has shown that they do not care. They will blow up an entire city block to get one person. They've done it to assassinate Iranian leaders, nuclear scientists. You name it, they will wipe out an entire city block to get one person. And so if them knowing that doesn't stop them, then I don't know what will. Nothing probably will. Because a lot of these people are trained from the time that they are little kids. You will fight for Islam, you'll die for Islam. Islam is, it's fight, train, and Allah. Fight, train, and Allah. That's everything to them. There's, like, outside of that, no rational human being would continue to fight like this in those conditions. But Iran has just signaled that it will respond to any Israeli or U.S. attack with more deadly and destructive retaliation. And it says that any U.S. force in the region would be met by U.S. force, and that Iranian leaders believe that in order to, defer United States from attacking in the future, they would have to kill 500 United States soldiers. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard, because Trump literally said, if you spill a drop of United States blood, we will shed a gallon of yours. Do you really think that the way that you're going to get Trump to stop is by attacking the United States of America? It's literally like they forget who they're dealing with. It's like that Joe Biden speech, we are the finish line. But, like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you think that you can beat the United States of America, I mean, at this point, it should be appeasement to the United States of America. We are the most dominant country in the world. Remember the Maduro attack or the invasion when we went in and we took out Maduro? Remember when we took out that illegitimate leader? And the security guards there are giving testimony about the fact that they came in and they sent this, like, sonic boom and they made us all deaf and we were vomiting blood. Right? If a small group of guys can come in and do that in an hour, or I think it was 6 hours, what else are they capable of if you really make them mad? And that's literally when no United States soldier was killed. So what do you think happens when you kill 500 of them? Are you dumb? Like, I'm not for the war in Iran, but that's just stupid. There's no way that you can get Trump to negotiate by doing that to Trump. That's not how he works. At this point, we should understand he has been the most famous man in the world for over 10 years now. And we're supposed to believe that this is the way that we get him to come to the negotiation table. Have you seen the way that he has operated in his life? Hate him or love him, we should all know that there's just no way that that is a good idea. Like, seriously, he might even nuke them at that point. Now, that's not a good thing, but let's just be realistic here. Iranian state media needs to get a lot smarter. It'd be one of the worst things that they could do. Now, while foreign wars are extremely unpopular in this country, irreversible damage will still be done to President Trump's reputation if any American is actually killed. This is true at the same time. He will continue to use extreme force. Yeah, while Iran will lose. That was the point that I just made. On the contrary, though, while Iran will lose, the United States of America will lose, and Trump will lose support, even if he wins the war. Because Iraq is something that Americans have voted for Republicans, specifically Trump, over the last 8 or so years, 10 years at this point, because they thought that he was going to end the forever wars. That's what Trump ran on, right? And so that would be disobeying a major campaign promise. That's a bad idea. War with Iran is something that Trump has, I would say, avoided. But there's pressure from Israel 24/7 to get us to be drug into another war. If you have watched and monitored Trump's actions, he's actually far more peaceful than people give him credit. He doesn't actually want to go to war with Iran. He wants to come to the table. And peace through strength has been the way that he has just historically done it, right? When we assassinated Qasem Soleimani, well, we didn't go to war with Iran back then. We made them extremely upset, but war with Iran hasn't happened. He was able to do things like that. In June, we used the bunker busters and we took out their nuclear facilities. That didn't start a war. So he's been very good at this thing called avoiding wars. Now, I wouldn't put it out of the availability, or I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, I should say, that a war would start in this administration. I think we should keep everything on the table. We should acknowledge that anything's possible at this point, because there have been disappointments. There's so many instances where we could say, yeah, Trump dropped the ball. Like he fumbled. Like we had the ball and he completely fumbled it. But I think we have to understand about Trump is the number one thing that he values is actually the way that people think of him. He values popularity. The thing that gets him to keep going on zero sleep, the thing that gets him to sleep for 3 hours a night and then continue to go, be on planes, is because he is addicted to the public perception of him. He's addicted to his fans. He's addicted to being loved and hated, not just liked or disliked, right? He's somebody that would rather be loved by half the country, hated by half the country, than liked by 90% of the country and disliked by 10%. Right? He thrives off of people having very, very passionate opinions about him. That's like him at his best, you could say sometimes is during the election cycle when he knows he's going to go from rally to rally to rally where people are going to be piled up for as far as you can see to see him speak. He loves that. So one of the reasons why he wants to avoid a war with Iran, I know, is because it's extremely unpopular. And in principle, he disagrees with it too. Yes, but if the United States of America, if the citizens of the United States wanted a war with Iran, he probably would have gone to war with Iran already. Right? One of the reasons why he stopped the ICE raids in Minnesota was because it was extremely unpopular. Now, it was unpopular among the wrong people, or the right people, depending on how you look at it. It was wrong. The people that hated it were the people that didn't even support him in the first place, right? But that was a disappointment. That was a time when he dropped the ball. But we need to realize he is going to do the thing that he thinks most people want him to do, but things happen behind closed doors that we have no idea about. Conversations. There are people in his circles, there are people behind closed doors that are telling him information that we don't know. We don't know what people are being said to him. He has once said at a rally, though, that he'll have one person to his left and one person to his right, and they both just essentially give their opinion, they give their side, and then he has to decide what's best. So often, even if you are a Roman emperor 2,000 years ago, or you are a president of the United States today, even if you are a king in the Middle Ages, if you are Putin today, you are always at the mercy of the people that give you information, because the information that is given to you by your advisors is how you make your decisions. That's why Jared Kushner was so extremely powerful. He was probably the most powerful man in the White House. He got Steve Bannon fired. Was because he was the closest person to Trump, giving him information because he was his senior advisor. So he's always at the mercy of the people who are closest to him, yes, but it goes both ways. You have the inside circle, the people that give him information, that's half of it, and then the other half is how the public perceives him. So you should pray that the way that the public sees it is the way that Trump would rather is the road that Trump would rather travel. Because obviously this isn't true in every single circumstance, right? There are policies that the people that are around Trump understand better, right? There are things that people in politics that have been around for a while would understand better than we would. However, when it comes to issues like a war that we would get sucked up into, trillions of dollars would be spent, lives will be cost, then he should definitely listen to the American people over the snakes in his corner. Because he does have the wrong people in his corner. That's literally one of the things that had him fried when he was running in 2020. It's one of the things that we were hoping he was going to be free from in 2024, but we were wrong. It's mixed. I don't want to get sidetracked here, but it is definitely mixed. Today, I don't know if you saw it, or yesterday at this point of release, Tucker Carlson just did an episode with Mike Huckabee, where it explains a lot concerning how Israel is able to change people's opinion on them when they visit Israel or have conversations with people who are ambassadors or supporters or a part of the nation state of Israel. And so when I watched this interview, Mike Huckabee was clueless when he needed to be, or when he was pressed on hard questions, he would just say, I don't know, whenever he would be pressed by a fact from Tucker on the treatment of Christians in Bethlehem or Christians being spit on in Israel or genocide, whatever it might have been. Evil people in the government doing evil things, he would just say, well, I don't know about that. But then he was able to pull out his flashcards that he had studied and lie to Tucker, go with the routine arguments, talking about how, well, the United States needs Israel because, Iran or whoever, they would really just kill United States of America, wipe us out if they had the chance. It's just the routine arguments that we were seeing in this interview. It was about 2 hours long. And by the end, Tucker actually did seem a little bit charmed by the way that he was speaking, which makes a lot of sense because if you guys remember, Elon Musk criticized Israel, went on a 2-week tour of Israel, came back pro-Israel. At the end of the interview, Mike Huckabee invited Tucker Carlson to go and visit Israel for a period of time, and Tucker Carlson pretty much agreed to it. We had him at the end of the interview saying, I love Israel more than he did when he went in. When he went in, he was pressing Mike Huckabee on a lot more. This just shows words can be very, very charming. Words can be deceiving, and that is their go-to. They'll be able to divert, and it makes sense, but we need to understand, we need to be as literate as possible when it comes to this issue. Actions always speak louder than words. They can say anything, they can pretend to be naive. And in the moment, it can be very captivating. They can be very persuasive when they say these things, right? But we need to understand that we're not just going to fall for that. We're going to say, no, I've seen this. I've seen the actions. I know what's going on in Gaza. I've seen the pictures. I've seen the videos. Well, the rest of the world calls it a genocide. Well, the Bible quite literally says this. Tucker Carlson's biggest Achilles heel in that interview was the fact that he didn't understand the Bible enough. Because he referred to Genesis chapter 15, and I'm pretty sure he referenced the wrong chapter. I think he should have done Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, when it says, well, the people who are descendants of, if you bless Israel and you'll be blessed. That's not what it says. It's talking about Abraham, right? But he actually got Mike Huckabee to say that Israel should take over the entire Middle East. Watch this clip.
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land, and you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. And that would include basically the entire Middle East.
Christian Zionism. I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Well, that's terrifying because you know who wants that greater Israel as well? Benjamin Netanyahu. And is that land actually Israel's? The Jewish people today who we can't even track their lineage? They're Ashkenazi Europeans? No, it's not. Let me tell you, Matthew chapter 21, verse 43, where Jesus quite literally says that he is in the parable of the tenant. And it's either the parable of the tenant or it's the parable of the workers in the vineyard. I think it's interchangeable. And I encourage you to read Matthew chapter 21. He says that he is removing the land from the people who dwell in it, quite literally talking about the Jewish people when they killed the people who came to collect rent. You know what? Let me just back up. If you're listening to this, here's a full breakdown of the parable of the tenant or the parable of the workers in the vineyard. So essentially you had these places in Israel back in the day where, specifically Jerusalem, which is what we're talking about, and you had these very beautiful gardens, these homes with vineyards, right? And they would have people that would work there and stay there. And the landlord sends somebody, I'm paraphrasing the Bible, of course, the landlord sends somebody to go to collect payment, and they beat him. So he sends somebody else. They beat him more severely. Then he sends somebody else, and they beat him nearly to death. And I'm pretty sure they either beat him to death or they killed him. And then the landlord says, surely if I send my son, they'll listen. Now, if you haven't caught on already, Jesus is referring to the prophets, such as like Zechariah, who was killed. And then he's finally referring to the Son of Man, Jesus Christ. Surely they'll listen when the Father has to send his Son. You know what they do? They killed the Son. He's referring to the Jewish people. So he says, Matthew chapter 21, verse 43, which is the culmination of the story, he says, he is going to remove the land from the people whom dwell in it and give it to a people bearing its fruit. That's not the Jewish people that reside there today. They're more closely referred to in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 as the synagogue of Satan, because that's the closest that we have to the Jews that are there today. They're not recognizable from the people who already live there. There are people that have lived in that area for thousands of years as Christians in Bethlehem, people that lived in the area. They're not the Jewish people that moved in there in 1947. Just not. Not the same people. We shouldn't be deceived. But Tucker Carlson didn't know that. He didn't know to bring it up. He didn't know to say that while it is true that it is blessing Abraham, but who is Abraham's seed? Who are the descendants of Abraham? We are. If you have accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and you're a Christian, you are Abraham's seed. That's what Romans 2 talks about. It says, we are now Abraham's seed. Circumcision is done within the heart. Then in another verse, pretty sure this is Galatians, it says there is neither Jew nor Gentile, nor Greek, nor man nor woman. We are all one in Christ Jesus. I didn't nail that verse perfectly. I should have, unfortunately. But you get the idea. When you debate or you have these arguments, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be able to press people that lie on God's name, that lie on the Bible, like Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee, who flippantly just said in passing, well, Israel should own the entire Middle East. Why? Do you know why? Bring me more Bible than an out-of-context verse. Be able to supply more of the Word of God within context, and then we can have a good argument. But other than that, we could put that down really quickly if we know what we're talking about. It's so important that we are biblically literate in this world, because if you don't understand the Bible, then you are going to be folded by Muslims, Mormons, and Jews that use it against you because they may know it better than you do. Somebody else knows the Bible. If a non-Christian knows the Bible better than you, we have a problem, because they will stomp you. Satan knows the Bible better than we do, but we can know it good enough that we can mitigate his temptations. It's crazy how I started with, are we going to war with Iran? Which I'm going to say probably not. Probably not, but who knows at this point what will escalate into form of. Nothing is off the table. We've never been closer. And I went from that all the way to talking about God. That's what the podcast was created for. If you stuck this long and you've listened to it, you can hear me out when I talk about Jesus. And that's something that makes me extremely happy for all those that listen to this episode and to this podcast in general. I hope that next week is something that is more positive, but I wouldn't put my hope on it. We shouldn't be surprised when the world looks the way that it does. We shouldn't. We should expect everything that happens. We should expect that this world is naturally going to get worse and it's going to fall into chaos. But that's just the way it is. Our hope isn't even in this world, and that's what makes being a Christian so special. I'll see y'all next week with more developments on this issue, and hopefully today we can come to a nuclear deal. But as far as I'm concerned, the question will still be raised, are we going to war with Iran? And I pray not. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will see you all next week. Goodbye.